This is not an era. I mean, these people had seen, just as I mean, my grandfather was in Malta in the war. He was an anti-aircraft gunner, and his best friend was killed when a shell dropped on him but didn't explode. So he was literally obliterated by the shell, and there was no psychological support. You got on with it. You got on with it, as the Maltese people did. I mean, famously, you got on with it. People didn't understand what had happened to these men in the war. And I think what film noir does is show the fractured kind of psyche of that veteran and their adjustment to civilian life. Equally, the kind of American cult of gangsterism at the time gives us the kind of criminal organizations. And this, you'll find as I move on into tech noir, we'll start to kind of draw out these elements again. So we get the kind of the criminal organizations, the stereotypes to which these narratives frequently return. And again, kind of McCarthyism and the threat of nuclear war are also in there. The noir universe is unstable, it's paranoid, it's insecure. And again, that notion of McCarthyism as a backdrop to this. And again, there's a link there, I think, to the invasion narratives that we talked about last year.
What Kiss Me Deadly for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yes. So I think very much these influences can be traced through there. But Paul Schrader, I like Paul Schrader very, very much. You might have used him for your essay. Yes, yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about the film genre reader here, which is a classic. Film genre readers is a great, great book. Talks about 4 principal factors which he feels shaped the noir mode. Okay. And I'll work through these. You make some notes if you want. So the first one is the disillusionment that was felt by America in its return to a peacetime economy. And that sense of pessimism and alienation and worthlessness that global conflict had ingrained on the American psyche. Okay. No matter where you were in the war, if you were in active service, Americans had seen things they never even dreamt of. And if you were particularly, if you'd been in a Japanese prisoner of war camp, then you'd seen things that you wouldn't believe humans were capable of inflicting on each other, or if you'd been part of the liberation of the concentration camp. So a sense of kind of worthlessness is in there. Secondly, we see the importance of post-war realism. Yeah, and again, the horror genre has to react to this. Audiences needed a more realistic view of America. Yeah, just in the same way that audiences who'd been through the war were no longer scared of Frankenstein's monster or the mummy. They'd seen survivors of Auschwitz. Suddenly horror changes. World War II ruins horror art with a real thing. Yeah, absolute changes. But there's a demand in America for a more realistic portrayal of the nation. And then thirdly, of course, we have this legacy. I mentioned Douglas Sirk a moment ago, the legacy of German expats working in Hollywood that provide that incredible style. I think for a lot of people, if you're not going to talk about film noir as a genre, talking about it as a style is probably the next best thing to do. The ability to kind of cement those polemically opposed elements of realism on the one hand and expressionism on the other into a seamless visual style. I mean, that takes some serious skill. And then the final influence that Schrader identifies is the literary tradition. Yeah, those hard-boiled detective novels. Has anyone ever read any Dashiell Hammett? Yeah. Okay, cool. It's absolutely read some Dashiell Hammett. It's. I'm a big fan of American literature anyway, but you'll see the degree to which that literary tradition is furnishing these films with the characters, preset conventions of heroes, plots, dialogues. This Dashiell Hammett defines how a gangster talks, how a detective speaks. So the noir protagonist, frequently a detective figure, is another point of focus for us. Characters dominated by alienation and obsession. Surrounded by malign forces. And again, we'll see this in tech-noir time and time again. Forces outside of their control. They're not just fighting the bad guy, the criminal organization, the kingpin. They're fighting the universe. The universe is against them. The universe is nasty and cruel and heartless. And then, of course, women. Again, contributing to the kind of instability of the protagonist's universe. The femme fatale, absolutely, is a key kind of point of focus for us. Very much subverting that notion of relegating women to passivity and silence, so working against Laura Mulvey's kind of take on the role of women in cinema. These women undermine the position dictated for them by patriarchy. They're intelligent, they're powerful, yeah? And they derive power actually from sexuality, not weakness. And we've got a slide, I don't quite know why I put it in here, except I really, really wanted to watch the start of Touch of Evil, again, because it's one of the best shots in cinema history. So, to give us a flavour of the noir universe, how many people have not seen Touch of Evil? I think there's more than one. No, everyone else has really seen Touch of Evil? No? Okay. This for me is one of the greats of cinema. And we just kind of, yeah, we talked about some elements which we will see here, but let's have a little moment of genius, cinematic genius. Shadowy figures, dark alleys.
Chocolate and soda for my wife. Your wife?
No, you're right, officer.
Hey, can I get through? A lot of talk up here about how you cracked that brandy business. Yeah, I hear you caught the big boss. Only one of them. The Grandies are a big family. Good night. No bridges, Mr. Lineker.
Hey, I got
You're an American citizen, miss?
I got the ticking noise.
Yeah, okay.
No, really, the
Good night.
ticking noise in my head.
Mike, do you realize this is the very first time we've been together in my country?
You realize I haven't kissed you in over an hour?
Okay. Perfect piece of cinema. And if you're interested in cinematography, and largely I show that because I'm just one of the great shots of film. There's a Soviet film, and if someone's seen this, I'll be really impressed, called Soy Cuba, I Am Cuba, in which you will see some of the most remarkable, I can't remember the year, can someone Google?
Soy?
Yes, S-O-Y,
I saw that.
Soy Cuba. If someone can come up with the year. I'm going to say
1964.
Okay. The techniques used in this, to this day, some of them are completely without explanation. You will see camera technique. I mean, there's a tracking shot that literally follows a character through a building and then out the window and then over the kind of skyline of Cuba, and it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. It's incredibly skills. Please, Soy Cuba is good. Where am I? I digress. I just want to show Touch of Evil. That's really all I wanted to do there. So style, at the core of it, we got this sense of prevailing mood of pessimism and paranoia, a visual style dependent upon expressionist lighting and decor, systematic use of geometric patterns of light and shadow, distortion produced through camera angle and wide angle lenses, and a convoluted organization of narrative. Okay, this is at the core of film noir. I want to keep that kind of in mind as we move forward into tech noir for the last bit of the session, because what we get, and many of the criticisms actually about why we can't define film noir as a genre is because it kind of sits as an idea projected onto the past. I think for a lot of critics, we're kind of forcing films into a moulding that occurred so long after these films were made. But what we get is an evolution over the years of this group of films. Okay. So we have film noir, which by and large, and these dates can shift, and that's not a problem, runs from perhaps the early 40s to the late 50s. We then have the evolution of post-noir. Films like Long Goodbye, Cape Fear, Taxi Driver, yeah? I just realised I'm missing a bracket. Someone's stolen my bracket off my first slide. Little buggies. I have my suspects. Neo-noir, okay, from the mid-1980s, very much to the present. Films like Usual Suspects, Memento, Reservoir Dogs will probably be in there, Fargo, probably put in there. And then finally, the focus of today, just bringing us back to kind of this notion of cinema's relationship with technology. Finally, tech noir, okay? Which absolutely, I said it already, one of the most important, exciting and original developments, I think, in science fiction. It also kind of spans a number of other media forms as well. Video games, I think, have been obsessed with the world of tech noir as well. And I think what links all of these together, if I were to look at the kind of the linchpin here, absolutely stylistically, there are a number of shared concerns, but I think the crucial one is the notion of the city or urban spaces and the problems faced by individuals as a result of being trapped within the confines of those city spaces. Yeah. So what would I consider tech noir to be? This list is up for debate, okay? And absolutely I haven't updated it as fully as I'd want to. But just to give you a kind of flavour of the films I think you should be looking at. And yeah, absolutely, Blade Runner and Brazil, I think, are probably two classics that sit at the core of tech noir. But starting with Alien in 1979, all the way through Videodrome. Are people familiar with Videodrome? I think Cronenberg is a really interesting contributor to tech noir. Brazil, Gilliam's Brazil, absolutely classic. RoboCop, we're going to talk about a little bit. And then through to the kind of more contemporary fare that people are probably familiar with. 12 Monkeys, I think, is a really nice contribution.
Music.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are the kinds of films that we're talking about. That's just a kind of flavour of them. We've also got to acknowledge the contribution of William Gibson and his novel Neuromancer, okay, which is strangely visionary in terms of its kind of understanding what the future would look like. So this is cyberpunk literature. 1984 is the year Neuromancer is written. Foresaw the internet absolutely with startling kind of clarity. It's a world characterized by the overlapping of human and technological domains. Yeah. Cybernetic implants, computer networks. Interestingly, computer network in Neuromancer is called The Matrix. Yeah. Prior to The Matrix, obviously, the film being released. But four crucial factors then, he said, counting them, that link these. I'm going to look at these in a bit of detail, okay? First of all, technology, which is the kind of key point of today, yeah? The world is characterized, and here we depart from the traditional film noir. The world is characterized by a fear of technology out of control. A future where individuals are utterly dependent on technology. I mean, the Matrix technology kind of creates the world, doesn't it? Utterly dependent, but that technology, as we saw in war games, as out of control, as subject to malfunction, as able to kind of cause huge amounts of destruction. And the scene, I'm not going to show it today, but the scene, for those who know Gilliam's Brazil, the repeated scenes involving the ducts in the wall and the kind of air conditioning system, which has this sort of quasi-organic quality to this. It breaks down, but it kind of bubbles and chunks and it churns, and eventually it goes horribly wrong. So technology as out of control is number one. Number two, aesthetics. Again, that notion that these films are visually reliant, in the same way that I think film noir is visually reliant. We kind of accept it at the level of style. Absolutely, tech noir, I think, does the same thing. There's a kind of stylized grimness to these future visions. Yeah. Susan Napier, I mentioned panic sites. Susan Napier talks about the importance of the glossily dark surface of tech noir films. Yeah. That underline the overwhelming grimness of the visions presented, as well as create a visual style of the world that's as important a part of their appeal as their narrative content. Yeah. So glossily dark. I think if we think about Blade Runner, straight away we see that. Spaces of darkness fractured by frequently neon light, yeah, or light reflected in pools. Incredibly visually reliant, okay? And then thirdly, the notion of the city. And again, that is the linchpin that runs all the way through from film noir, all the way through to these contemporary offerings. The city is claustrophobic, is alienating. And just as we saw in Touch of Evil, the city kind of paradoxically represents both progress but also chaos. Yeah. If you think about Mega City 1 in Judge Dredd, the huge technology. Have people seen the remade Judge Dredd? Absolutely, yes. Because obviously
there's a remake. I didn't know there's a remake.
Which is kind of a little bit on the silly side. But the I forget the director. The remake is phenomenal. Absolutely, it was a micro budget film. One of the most violent films I think I've seen in recent years. I mean, this is Judge Dredd as he is in the comic books. But it's well worth a watch. Okay, so the city. As a space of progress but of chaos at the same time. And I don't quite remember, let's see, who mentioned Dark City, but I think absolutely, if we look at the opening of Dark City now, we'll see a number of these concerns kind of drawn together. So have a think about what we've talked about, and we'll have a little look at this.
First, there was darkness.